Either you're going to tear it down or the world will for you. You don't necessarily need to tear everything down, physically speaking, but you do need to let go or shed the pieces of your life that are not truly congruent with your soul.
I just got done interviewing Keren Eldad, who wrote GILDED, and you are going to realize in a very short period of time during this podcast that you can have all the success that you desire. Listen to this episode.
Welcome to Taking Care of Lady Business, where we get real about what it takes to succeed, whether it's in business, life, or both. I'm talking to game-changing and visionary women who've broken barriers, built empires, and redefined success on their own terms. They'll share their strategies, secrets, and the no BS advice you need to rise to the top. I'm your host, Jennifer Justice, also known as JJ. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business. I'm Jennifer Justice. Today we have Keren Eldad. She is an executive coach and just released a book called GILDED, Breaking Free from the Cage of Ambition, Perfectionism, and the Relentless Pursuit of More. Hi, Keren. How are you?
Hi, Jennifer. How are you? It's
I'm
so
sure
nice
the
to be
title
here.
perked a lot of ears. It's like, wait, me? What? A perfectionist? No way.
Yeah, well, I hate to be accused of such malicious things as well, but guilty.
Exactly, which I guess is why you wrote the book.
That's right.
Or,
Recovering perfectionist at your service.
oh my God, I cannot wait to hear how you stop over
Well,
analyzing and become. I mean, look, I've read the book. I know a lot about it. I can't wait to get into it, right? However, I would love to start a little bit of brief background about you and how you got to this.
yeah,
Like, not to the book, but like you had a different job,
I did.
right? And then you became an executive coach. So let's start in that kind of period of time.
Well, yes, I had a completely different career and a completely different life before this one. And, it's funny, you start to get to the age where you can almost see your life in eras. Hashtag shout out to Taylor Swift. But I really can see my life in eras. And there was an era before this one in which I pursued a lot of shadows, like most people in their 20s and 30s, in my defense. And it wasn't
Yeah.
only born of perfectionism, preternatural perfectionism, it was born of high achieving tendencies. Many, many people can relate to high achieving tendencies. This doesn't necessarily mean that you are exceptional at school and a talented athlete. I am not. And very, very unusually successful. It simply means you have obsessive quotient in your behavior style that make you prone to working a little harder than anyone else in dimensions that are important to you. And like most young people, the dimensions that were important to me were status and money, which are very, very basic things that we all chase after college. And by the way, the reasons for which we reach for college to begin with, right?
True,
So
true. And how else are you supposed to measure it, right?
exactly. Like that's just
Yeah.
how we're designed to measure it, thanks to a school system that is essentially breaking you into this mold. So I got out of college and I walked right into the mold, and in my 20s and 30s formed a career, and I dare say a persona based around everything I learned at school, plus my, I guess, taking way too seriously the movie The Devil Wears Prada. I decided to enter willingly the world of fashion and luxury and dedicate my life and career to something that I found, I guess, fun and interesting, but also that I really believed would provide me that certainty, that financial security, and that status, that titular success in society. This failed miserably because I got everything I wanted. It failed miserably because by the time I'm 31 years old, I am already a C-suite executive at a luxury corporation. I'm already married to a tall man, which, as you know, Jennifer Justice, is the apotheosis of all women's desires and beliefs. Because I was really thin, I hadn't eaten since the 90s, so of course that worked out for me. And because many of my accolades and results were essentially speaking for me. And as a result of that, in all of my early 30s, I started finding myself more and more aware of the fact that I was living in a gilded cage. I was living in a hall of mirrors that looked fantastic on Instagram, that people complimented me over all the time, that felt like a giant booby trap. I didn't love that job. That job did not wake me up eager for the day. It was living under strobe lights and just uncomfortable most of the time, even though it was a very good job. The husband was not good, actually, by any objective measure. He was abusive. It was a miserable relationship in which I was time and time again demeaned. I lived in fear. I was sleeping in the library of that very beautiful house that I lived in. It was absolutely miserable. And P.S., he kept threatening to take away my cats or to hurt them, which was really the most miserable thing since J.D. Vance that the world has seen. And then I had to get that gig going.
How do you choose just one?
Just a little,
Yeah.
a little J.D. Vance did. And then on top of that, I mean, I was really hungry and I didn't love the city that I lived in. Like all of my choices ended up looking very glamorous, but were not my choices. And this brought me to a crossroads that so many of my clients find themselves on. They've climbed this ladder and then they're on the top of that ladder and then they're looking at it going, did I even park it on the right wall? And from there, you realize all you got to do is just climb down. So that was the beginning of the transformation.
Well, let me ask you something. You just said they weren't your choices, but weren't they your choices?
They were. I thought that I was making conscious choices. Most of
Yeah.
us do.
Yeah.
But we're not aware of what we are choosing. We are choosing indoctrinated choices. We're choosing cultural lies that we've been fed since we were kids. None of us, by the way, none of us formed our self-image or our desires by ourselves. We were informed by society what our desires and self-image should be. You don't know whether you're good or bad. You were told very early whether you were good or bad. You don't know if you're good looking or not good looking. You were told. You don't know what is a good profession and what is not an appropriate profession. You are told by your parents, by society. And by the way, they are very well meaning. They want you to be safe and to have status. These are the hallmarks of society. It's just that most of us by middle age start going, you got to be kidding me with this. And
Yeah.
that's when we start climbing down.
Right. But I mean, even as women, right? It's like we're being told by a patriarchal society what success is, even though we're not being fed it and we're not welcome in that success. So we try to fight to it and get it. I went through the exact same thing. I was like, how many more bags do I need? How many more trips do I need? Like, nobody around me is happy. They all are pretending to be. And just having this conversation with somebody this morning, in particular in the music industry, where everyone has to fly first class. And then you meet people with real money and they're like, they all fly coach. It's so ridiculous. Just stupid things like that. It's like 4 hours of your life really matter that much that you have to spend another $5,000. Look, I mean, we would all like it if it was cheaper, but those kinds of things. It's like, this didn't make me
Yeah.
happy. Yeah.
I completely agree. And that's how you end up gilded and not golden. You end up with a facade that looks like it's
Right.
glittering, but it's actually not real. And you're right that you end up starting to notice. I don't think I noticed at first, Jennifer, that everybody around me wasn't happy, but I did notice that I was unhappy. I was in a shower once that I talked about in the book, and I was suicidal. Suicidal ideation means you are deeply unhappy. And that's when I started to really recognize all the sensations in my body, the aimlessness, the boredom, the restlessness, the fear as what they were. I'm unhappy and I got to do something about it. And I decided to do something about it. And that was when I basically took a match to my own life, burned it to the ground. I went first through the divorce, then I quit the job, moved back to the States, and couldn't find a job for a very long time. This is when I start contending with the death of my industry. The fashion luxury industry is one particular thing. The publishing industry was definitely already in decline. And this is where I start asking myself questions that, you're right, I should have asked a long time before, but society does not allow for it so readily. Like, what do you actually want to do? What do you actually love to do? And this is where everything changes for me.
Also, though, your brain, right? It's like your brain doesn't fully mature till you're 25.
No,
We're
actually
making
29, according
decisions.
to the suicide hotline that I volunteer on.
Oh
We
my
treat
God. Yeah.
everybody
I just
until
read
then
this
as
morning, it was
children.
like 25 because I was looking
Yeah.
into that, but like 29. Anyway, your 20s, right? So
Yeah.
you're making these major life decisions about what you want to study.
Yeah.
A lot of times people getting married,
Yeah.
having kids, and you're like, wait, what?
I know. I think it should be illegal, but it is what it is. I agree. My parents had me in their early 20s. It's amazing I'm not dead. Both my sisters got married at 24. Like, listen, I think that it can work out, but that's the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not because you were conscious, because you weren't. Do you
Right.
remember 24? I do.
Yeah, I do.
I don't think I should have been allowed to drive, let alone
I was a very
during.
good driver. I'm glad I could drive, but I was actually started law
Yeah.
school around that. Like I was in law school at the time, but and very depressed and like, did not feel like I total imposter syndrome. My
Yeah.
mother didn't graduate high school. Like, so I was like, what am I doing here? I'd walk by buildings where the last name would coincide with a colleague and be like, you have to be rich to do this. You know what I mean? Is how am I gonna ever make it? Like a lot of doubt,
Yeah.
but like, I got to make it. And, because here is the thing, like money doesn't technically buy happiness, but it buys a lot of convenience and choices. Okay. So
Mhm.
as particular as women who don't control, the wealth or massive wealth gap, like there is something to be said about having enough money that you can leave.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. But that's
Yeah.
exactly it. The energy around money has to change. If money owns you, you are screwed. But if you own money, you are free. Those are two very different choices. And the second is a choice that you can only come into through consciousness. You can only come into money as a tool for me through purpose, through self knowing, through boundaries. You cannot do this if you continue to make unconscious decisions. And most of us make unconscious decisions throughout most of our lives. And that's not me talking, that's Carl Jung. So it's really worth the while to explore this, to go on an inner journey, such as I offer in Gilded, for example, and to really reevaluate who you are so that you can make that choice from a place that isn't resistant or trying to prove something, but from a place that knows what you deserve.
Right. Right. So let's, before we really get into Gilded and how it works, I want everybody to hear it in one, linear note about your method, basically. Like, so how did where did this transition become between, fashion, publishing, and then a coach?
Yeah, so that was years in the making. Essentially, what happened was when I started to tear it down, I didn't have a dream like Martin Luther King and just wake up and think, this is what I will do with the rest of my life. It was years before I would say that. What first happened was I started to recognize, first and foremost, my part in what had happened. I recognized that I had made those choices, that they were my choices, and I wanted to understand why I made such choices that were truly incongruent with my soul, that were basically self betrayals. They were Faustian bargains or deals with the devil. And I wanted to understand how I could get out of it. That's pretty much it. By taking responsibility for it, I wanted to understand okay, if I understand clearly what I did wrong, then maybe I can also understand what I can do right. And then I took several years to study very, very deeply, from Kabbalah to Tony Robbins seminars to heavier coaches, you name it, I did it. I was jumping up and down in the seminars. I was hugging my inner child. I was hitting a pillow vigorously to get all the demons out. Years later, I emerge with very deep clarity, with a lot of true self respect and self love, with a lot of healing. And I started to think if I could do that for myself and I could really, really be clear about what I want, because I've also started to fix the financial situation that had occurred in this giant blip. I can do it for other people. So I assembled a method, a 12-step program. That's right, modeled after Alcoholics Anonymous. My version is called Workaholics Anonymous, and to really help people get through the system. And then I did something really interesting, Jennifer. Unlike other people who are like, I'm going to launch a business and here's what I'm going to do, I didn't do any of that. At the time, you could download your entire LinkedIn list. You actually could get everybody's email.
Oh, no
And
way.
now you can't do that anymore, PS. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did that. There were like 4, 5, 600 names, something like that on that list. I put everything into Google, not MailChimp, not ConvertKit, Google into my Gmail. And then I sent out a shingle email saying, friends, I have created a system. I actually did. I took the time to write it. I took the time to create the entire system. If you'd like to work with me through this system, it got me from zero to clarity to knowing exactly what to do. I've got 6 spots in which I can do this for you. And I can only do this in my free time because I got a day job. But let me know if you're interested. Within a couple of hours, all of them sold out.
Amazing.
That was the birth of Coach Keren, even though she didn't yet know what she was about to do.
How long ago was that?
That was January of 2017, 8 years ago.
Wow. All right. Look, you hit on something earlier when you were talking about It was your choice, right?
Yeah.
So when you realize it was your choice, and you talk about this in the book in like vulnerability about it, like it helps with this victimization, right?
Yeah.
And turns the tables on it. You know, a lot of times you know, look, we are dealing with the patriarchy as women every day,
Right.
right? You know, we can't change that every day, but we can change how we react to it, right? And it
Yeah.
turns the tables from being a victim of it to like being an active participant in the choices in our life, so we don't have to abide by those rules, you know?
Correct.
And you talk about that a lot in a totally different way that I just said it. And I think it's so important because, you know, and you talk about a client of yours that had been cheated on,
Yeah.
right? And how you showed him. I mean, you say it better than me. Like, I love this example. So you can, you know, and
Yeah,
I feel
well, a
like
lot of
many,
people when they say the cheating happened, are you saying it didn't happen? I I didn't say it didn't happen. I'm just saying consider that it didn't happen to you, that it happened for you. Consider that you had a part in this. Consider that your marriage had been disintegrating well before this. Consider your role in this because things do not happen out of the blue. They happen out of the oblivion. And unless we take responsibility, we cannot change anything. There are two things that are really important to say here for women. Number one, do not accept shame, period. In other words, from the minute recognized that I had been in an abusive relationship, when I made the decision to say I chose that, I didn't say I'm an idiot and I can't believe I did that and I must be inferior, therefore I did that. Society is already going to judge you that way, just letting you know. All the time, I get these little looks like, oh, you poor thing. Oh, how awful. You must be so sad. Did you have abusive parents? And I'm sitting there going, no,
yeah,
no, I didn't. I just made a choice that was a very bad choice. That's it. No shame,
yeah,
warm hugs. And by the way, so did you. Number two, when you also accept responsibility, you get back into the driver's seat of your own freaking car. Unlike
mhm.
you, Jennifer, I'm a terrible driver, but I do understand the importance of driving your own car.
Yeah,
And I knew that I wanted to get back into that seat, and that seat that I had willingly given up to someone with wildly patriarchal tendencies.
yeah, yeah. No, that's such an interesting thing with shame too, because you know, as women, because we don't ask for the things that we really deserve, want, you know, have to have, like change our life and destination, you know, because we've been told to be the peacemakers, etc. Then you see people, in particular women who are like in finance saying, you need to do this. And I made all this money in 6 months, or I built my company in 3 years. And, you know, really when you dig down into it, you find out that's not really true.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel shameful. It's actually not helping us,
It's true. And they're
you know?
convincing us also that we're actually not smart enough to manage this, so they'll
Exactly.
manage it for you.
Yeah.
And this is just an enormous myth. Just so you know, for anyone out there listening, and I know that you know this, Jennifer, running a P&L is being able to use an Excel sheet. I think every woman out there is capable of using an Excel sheet and doing basic arithmetic. This is not at all complicated. Running investments, investing is not complicated. It's not hard. And there's nothing difficult about it. There's nothing unusual about it. It's just that everyone has convinced us that they've got it figured out and they're much better at it than you. And you clearly don't have that skill set. This is nonsense. And this is part of what ends us up making very, very sloppy decisions about our one and only life.
Yeah. So true. Oh my God. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's get into your whole methodology here. Is that what you
Well,
call it? Methodology? What do you call it?
yes, it is. It's a methodology. It's a system that I use. It's why I think it
Yeah,
works
I
so
know, because
well.
it's like a lot of steps. And I was like, okay,
That's right.
got the detox down. Now I got, you know.
Yeah. It's scalable. And I promise you that the book, I actually created the book sort of the same way I created this program. I kind of wanted it to sort of serve a few people and hopefully be useful to my clients while they're going through the program. So it accompanies the program identically in the same sequence. And I'm delighted that it has had such a much, much wider impact than I have imagined for it. And I think it's because it is systemic and systems scale very well. They help you to actually go through things without doing too much guesswork. The system begins with a very, very simple step that is identical to the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is admit that you have a problem. That's it. My first chapter is called Admit It. Your life doesn't feel as good as it looks. That's it. If you're willing to sit even with that, which is extraordinarily difficult to do because you immediately have to contend with sunk costs, loss aversion being the biggest obstacle in our lives. You immediately have to contend with the semblance of having made a mistake with shame, then you're already 10 steps ahead of the game if you're willing to contend with this step alone. And that's pretty much it. From there, I guide you through a system that goes deeper and deeper and deeper, or they basically removed more and more of the armor, the invulnerability armor, the detox of emotions and thought patterns that are in your way, that are blocking you and creating limiting beliefs armor, and then to the unraveling of your purpose, and from there to the clear ability to create a goal and to start aiming towards it and to build this time a life that is happy and free rather than a life that has first class when you definitely don't need to spend an extra $5,000 for first class. In other words,
Clear if
something that
I could,
reveals
if I could
something
afford
genuine.
it.
That's it. The methodology is pretty straightforward. My job is to help you to reveal as much light as possible so that you can actually start going back at your business from a place that is free.
So what are the steps? How do they do it?
Well, we
Without
start
giving me
with
help.
here are the basics. Here are the
Yeah.
basics. The absolute basics. Number one is admit that this is off. That's it. The admission in and of itself takes a long time. And that's because you have to understand how your brain works and why you should do the opposite, which is really fun and very, very useful.
Right. George
Number
Costanza, you use that. Well, look, if you're born like a perfectionist, my daughter is one too. Like even this morning, she got really mad at herself because she wore Uggs instead of wearing sneakers and just PE first class, and she was scared to get in trouble. Like it was a big deal. She's, just
Yeah.
turned 12. Like it's very, she's already an overachiever and a perfectionist. And it's like, she comes about it honestly. It's not like I told her to do that.
Yeah, we're all like this a little bit. I think overachievers are born, frankly. The character of Alex Dunphy in Modern Family comes to mind. I was definitely born this way. I'm one of those people who shows up at a party that's black tie and cocktail attire, and I think exactly the same way your daughter does. What did I do? It's just normal. You do start to learn how to live with it though, and you do learn how to make it a choice rather than a chore. And that's it. That's where all the freedom comes from. Just a little bit of it's a choice, it's a high standard. It's not a punishment from God if I do not adhere to it. This is not law. They're very, very different things. That's the difference between high standards and perfectionism. The second step after admitting that your life is not absolutely awesome and that you might have a few glitches in the way is to examine your limiting beliefs. And here we have real exercises to help you spew them onto the page and to help you unwind from them. Once you attain that clarity, the next will be to come into closer union with yourself, to not only purge the thought patterns that you are living again and again that are slowing you down and slowing down your manifestations or the life that you truly want. For example, I can't get ahead, and there really is no way for me to move past this. And this career is not available to me, and I have to fly first class. I must be seen flying first class. If I'm not seen flying first class, I will be unloved. That's when you really start to come into full alignment with your Achilles heel, your lack of self worth, and we start to help you to develop real self worth. From there, we have a real foundation. And then we move into the terrain of purpose. If you really have come to full terms with yourself and you're a lot more detoxed, we can start aiming you at the correct things, not the targets of the past, the targets of the ego, status, money, but the targets of the soul, happiness, peace, fulfillment, and joy. And then from there, I start to essentially teach you how to ascend, how to climb the next ladder. And those next steps, I think, are filled with momentum and joy. That's where you are, hopefully, in the book now, and will help you to take off and reach cruising altitude much farther, faster than ever before. I think that's a pretty apt description of the steps and how they take you down and then up.
How did you come up with this?
I practiced on my number one favorite patient, client, and guinea pig, me. Trial and error. And by the way, I don't know if you know this because we have a friend in common, but this is a true story. I went to at least 26 that I wrote out courses and practitioners. I did every single one of their methodologies. And then at the end, when I emerged much, much clearer, I started to understand why things had not worked, what did work, and in which sequence it would work more ideally for me. Then I start testing it on the next guinea pigs, Karen's first clients, who, by the way, I still work with today. um, we've seen each other in several different iterations, is to say. And essentially, I started to watch what works for them and to refine the process. And that's it. Now we have a system that's pretty dialed in.
Look, you work with a lot of very successful people, high net worth, et cetera. Like, what are you most surprised with? That's like a common theme among them in general.
Oh, there are a couple of things that are always surprising to me. The first is it will never cease to surprise me how how the truth is so different from the facade. It's it's really impressive to me to have learned on my own flesh and through others that not all you see is the right thing. And by the way, the more the person is posturing, everything is awesome. Karen, you're absolutely wrong. And this does not apply to me. I've literally seen friends read one page and say, "This is not me." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Is the title your name or is the title gilded?"
Yeah. Yeah.
When they protest that much, I usually know that there's a huge incongruence going on
Well,
underneath.
you have a whole section about lying
Yes,
outwardly and
exactly.
to
There's
yourself.
like a
Yeah.
serious situation. So basically, the more perfect everything looks, the more you know something is off.
Yeah.
The second thing that always surprises me is just the lack of self-awareness. Most people are truly, they really believe they're very self-aware. Harvard Business Review has already proven this 7 ways from Sunday. Only 10% of people are truly self-aware, and they've done a lot of work, and they tend to be quite humble about it. So the ones who open with, "I'm really self-aware. I consider myself a very self-aware person," is way, way off. And then the third thing that always surprises me, Jennifer, is just how Machiavellian they are. They most superstars, and I've coached Olympic athletes and stuff, well, separate special ops people and senators. I mean, people who've really gone very, very far in their disciplines and fields, who believe themselves to be altruistic, who believe themselves to be motivated by perhaps purer things, are actually not. They're chess players. They're playing a game of chess, and they're usually playing not to lose, not playing to win. This is a very, very radical thing for
You
them
talk about
to
that in the
realize.
book. Yeah, that was another
Yeah,
thing. Yeah. You're playing not to lose versus playing to win.
yeah. I mean, you've been around celebrities, right? They look like they have a lot. They look like they're really just all the chips in the table, but they're really not. And the higher they are going, the more they're trying to protect what they got, to cover their ass, to play defense. The way I describe this in the book is by conjuring up the greatest movie of the last 10 years, Crazy Rich Asians. In Crazy Rich Asians,
Well,
it
I would say, well, yeah, okay. Go
I
ahead.
mean, there are lots of others. I liked Barbie.
Oh, no, it's great. But
Wicked.
yeah.
But Crazy Rich Asians is awesome because it's entirely framed in game theory, and game theory allows you to understand the Machiavellian mindset exceptionally well. Game theory is essentially how players will respond in any given game. If you're prone to scarcity thinking, if you're one of those people who believes that we live in a dog eat dog world and we have scarce resources and we're all competing for them, which PS is 99% of society, whether you like it or not, because we're here in a finite body, then essentially the way you will play a game is not to lose. Rachel Chu is playing in the opening sequence a game of poker against her TA, Curtis. Curtis is a really smart guy with a really good hand, and she has a terrible hand, but she sees him flinching. What does she do when she sees him flinching? She moves all her chips to the middle of the table. What does he do, Jennifer? Do you remember?
No.
He folds.
Oh,
He folds
right.
a
He
good
folds. Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
and that's when she makes the point. She shows him that
Yeah.
he was not playing with his logic and his incredible intellect and his amazing success. He was playing with his psychology. Our psychology is so afraid of losing something that it will fold a good hand. And this is what I mean by Machiavellian playing. They think that they're playing a good hand. They think they're being aggressive. They think they're being sharkish and winning, and they're not. They are actually playing defense. They will fold. They will crumble like a matzah the second they are
Right.
faced with a real criticism and with a real challenge. And that's where I come in. I come in to say, actually, if I were you, I'd do something completely different. And that's how we play a completely different game.
Well, yeah. And then, how do people look? It's kind of scary to like, you did it, but it's like, it's kind of scary. And I kind of did it too, but like, tear everything down,
Mm.
right? Like, if you have kids and you have a community and like you have a mortgage, and you have a monthly nut, like, it's hard to tear it all down to like build it back up.
I understand. That's why I say take your time with the
Yeah.
process. But that's also why I end my book with a chapter called Pray for a Shitstorm. Listen, either you're going to tear it down or the world will for you. Whatever is not real will essentially start to crumble. There's not much we can do about that. I'm not wishing that upon you. I'm just saying if it's not real and it goes away, you won't miss it. And that's the part that I hope consoles people. If it's not real, you will not miss it. If it is real, it will last. So you don't necessarily need to tear everything down, physically speaking, but you do need to let go or shed the pieces of your life that are not truly congruent with your soul.
What do you mean by that?
Well, let's say you're in a marriage and it's working. You are together. You have accomplished your goals and you're co parenting very well. However, you have not had sex in 7 years and you kind of don't love them because they're a little annoying to you. So listen, the systems that are working, the children, the co parenting, the respect for each other, they will survive. But that marriage is dead in the water. If you accept that and are allowing it to let it go, you will actually emerge happier. I promise you, you are not going to miss it, especially when you're having really hot sex with somebody you absolutely adore.
Right.
And
Well,
that's the trade-off. It's a perfect analogy.
yeah, but how do you nobody knows that that's going to happen.
No, they don't, but they can look at us. We are expanders. We are living proof of how it ends. It ends really well. For the rest, you're going to need a lot of faith, and that's hopefully what one of the things my book is designed to help you attain.
Well, one of those things is, right, you talk about detoxing your mind. Can you
Yeah.
talk about a little bit of that, like the
Yes.
negativity, those steps?
Negativity is the one main thing to, in this particular case, begin a detox from. Detox is a wonderful analogy. In the middle of the book, I offer you a mindset detox, but just to show you that the way you're thinking right now is going to continue to perpetuate this playing not to lose. And if you detox from these 5 very common thought patterns that hold all overachievers back, you are going to have a much easier time ahead. You'll have a slimmer, healthier time ahead to finish the very Los Angeles analogy that I use in the book. And essentially, one of them is negativity. Negativity is catastrophizing or assuming the worst. I do not accept this at all. When somebody says to me, Karen, it's really hard and it's really rare and it doesn't end well, and there is a chance it doesn't end well, I always say the only way this doesn't end well is if you accept that as a possibility. Period. The end. I've done this enough times. I've coached more than 2,000 individuals personally. There's no way we're all the exception to the universe and you're the only freak show who doesn't get out of this alive. There's literally no way. The only way that you don't get out of this is if you continue to talk to me about fake, phony baloney statistics about what your chances are of failure and how terrible this is and how it's absolutely impossible to rebuild your life at 50. This is complete nonsense. I'd like to say take your chances, especially if your marriage is dead in the water and you don't like your career and you see the giant dead end, the flashing
Mhm.
neon sign that your industry is over. Do something. Do
Yeah.
something. You will probably, very likely, get a lot more than you hoped for.
Well, obviously, too, it's like if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results, right?
Exactly. Which is why
So,
detoxing those thoughts probably worth your while.
right, and you're just going to have more resentment and more regret, right?
Yeah,
And it's the only way out, right? Through and make a big change.
that's right. Just like any childbirth experience. Can't stop it while it's happening. Just go.
That's true. You cannot. And so when did the book come out?
The book came out on January 21st. It's been 2 months.
Amazing. And have you had this book in your mind for a long time? I'm sure it's like something you've been working on.
Yeah, I started working on it 7 years ago.
Okay, so when you started this, yeah.
Yeah, I really wanted something to accompany the program. The first draft was garbage. The second draft was real garbage. The third draft was unbelievable garbage. Then I started to acquire really, really talented literary agents. And then they really didn't get the work and they started to modify the work. So I started to, even if it wasn't garbage, dislike it. And then I finally decided to scrap all of it and write something that I wanted to write and self-publish it just for my clients. And that's when an editor that I was working with said, "Do you mind if I show this to a publisher?
Oh,
Because
no
I
way.
think they're
I
going to
love
really
that.
like it." And
I
I
didn't
said,
know this part of the story. Can we talk about
"Sure,
this a
no
little bit
problem."
more? Because so many people have a story to tell. and no one really knows how to do it. And, another thing, it's like back to your, like, let's not have shame. Even though this is your methodology, you've been working on it, you went through 3 different versions that you all thought was garbage.
I went through 5 different versions, all of them were garbage, and then I finally decided to scrap it and write exactly what I wanted to write with absolutely no shame and just live with it because it was a service to my clients and it wasn't about me. And that's when this wonderful editor showed it to a publishing house and they made me an offer literally that very week. That was an amazing offer, and the book, as you know it, was born. This is essentially a version of literary purgatory that almost everyone I know has gone through. And I want everybody to understand how this works. There's no falling ass back into favor. There's no Justin Bieber story for the rest of us.
What do you mean by falling ass back into favor, Justin Bieber story? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, what was he, 12 years old when he starts to break into enormous, unbelievable success? Now, yes, of course, we know that the rest of the story is not as linear. It's just that many people think that things just work out for some people, and they just don't. They work out for those who make the desire non-negotiable and who have genuine compassion for themselves.
Yeah. Well, isn't that's a little bit about becoming self-aware too, right?
Yeah.
Well, so even the master can, mess up the methodology, right?
Yep.
I think that is so important and such an important part to like understand and acknowledge, right? It's like the cobbler where it has no shoes, or, the manicurist with bad nails, or, the hairstylist with the bad hair. Like, it's
Yeah, I
all
get
of
it.
us.
I have met
It's
I
like,
have
I
had
tell the story
yeah,
too.
and
Is
that's also encouraged me enormously to just be very real in my real life. In other words, if I'm having a fight with my husband, Ryan, I'm very comfortable saying we're having a bad day. I'm very happy showing up at my speaking engagements without a manicure because my job is not to be perfect. My job is to be good. And good is the only thing that really matters here.
right. Right. So even when they put on the, I mean, she was really good, but her manicure.
I'm sorry if that bothers you, JD Vance, but yeah,
Well, I think the next call should be you at that point, right?
exactly.
I love it. So it came out the end of January. I mean, it's fascinating. And was already using, tips from the book. My kids who just had, are done with spring break. I don't want to go to school. No one wants to go to school. School's so bad. No, no, it's like, guys, why don't we look at it in a different way? It's like really hard. I mean, it's
School
like,
is fun, and
yeah, it's fun. You get
you
to see
have
your
summer.
friends. You were super bored for the days that we weren't like off traveling, like,
Exactly, and just try having a job. You're gonna miss school so much.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and being off my dime too. Yeah, so
Exactly. There's no spring break when you're a grown up.
exactly. I mean, this is awesome. This has been amazing, and I know I have to let you go because you have many other people to help. But here at the Justice Department, and taking care of lady business, we actually always ask one question of every single one of our interviewees. And that is, what is the worst advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I ever received was, and I unapologetically attack this person publicly, was from Lori Gottlieb, who wrote a book in my early 30s. It came out in my early 30s called Marry Him, The Case for Marrying Mr. Good Enough. It was a true atrocity. She argued in the book that if you're over 35 and unmarried, this is an emergency and you need to compromise. Today, I say unapologetically to any woman who wants to succeed in love, in life, or in business, there is absolutely no room for compromise. Win win is the only thing that you're looking for. And if you don't love what you do and you don't love who you're sleeping with, don't do it. That's pretty
Mhm.
much it. The exact opposite advice is the only advice that has ever served me. That terrible advice led me astray, made me take very, very poor actions in my own life. And I think it was a factor because I really did listen to her and I really was worried that it was an emergency. I truly believe anyone who is working against your desire and feeding you urgency and fear is lying to you.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's amazing. I love that I had a similar situation with a book when I was giving a lot of advice to women on negotiating and standing up and asking for, what they deserve and what they need and what they want. And I went to Barnes and Noble, and there were no books at the time about like female empowerment, et cetera. There were like 4 of them. One of them was, if you don't have big boobs, wear ponytail.
Oh, for crying out loud.
It was written by Barbara Corcoran.
Okay, well, I hope she's apologized about it since Lori Gottlieb, after that, she wrote a book called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. It was about her divorce. And I swear to God, I had a hard time not going, ha ha, see how that worked out for you? Anyway, the lack of
Yeah.
self-awareness was just astounding to me. Do not listen to anybody who's trying to scare you into anything. You can have whatever you want.
Yeah, I would, and one of the questions I really wanted to ask you is advice that you know, something that you would tell women that like is surprising about success, and you literally just said it.
Most surprising thing about success is how wonderful it is, how easy it is, how fun it is, and how much you're going to like it. Enjoy.
Yeah. Oh my God, this has been amazing. I could talk for hours with you.
I'm sure we will.
I know we will, we will. So thank you so much. If they want to buy the book and find you, how can they do that?
Thank you. Gilded is sold wherever books are sold, and everybody's buying it on Amazon, whatever. Go Jeff Bezos. Enjoy your midlife crisis. And I can be found on www.KerenEldad.com, and Karen is spelled with 2 E's, so I like to say I'm not a Karen. I'm a Karen.
Same amount. I love it. And everyone listening to this episode of Taking Care of Lady Business, thank you so much. You're going to learn so much from this episode. I love it. Please write the review on it. Give us, tell us all the feedback, because this is an amazing episode. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, I'm Jennifer Justice.
Thanks for tuning in to Taking Care of Lady Business. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode with a friend who needs that extra push to own their success. And if you want more strategies, stories, and exclusive content, follow us on TikTok at Taking Care of Lady Business, on Instagram at thejustice.dept and Jennifer Justice L, or visit our website at thejusticedept.com. Taking Care of Lady Business is a production of Lady Business LLC and Salutations Media Co.